rhythm kind of concepts. So this is either, yeah, it's either R&B or soul, or it's kind of rock too, depending on how much distortion you have on your guitar. But what I'm doing, and my whole thing about the right hand when playing rhythm is you never stop. You always keep the right hand moving. The right hand is always doing it. This is just my way of doing it. It's not the only way, but my right hand when I play rhythm is always going up and down. So it kind of makes everything second nature, and everything kind of stay in time. And at a certain point, you don't have to think anymore. So this particular pattern, I'm going to slow it way down, and all I'm doing is choosing when to actually strike the notes, and then alternately when to just strike the muted strings. And I'm muting these strings. The two things. This is very simple for the left hand. I'm only doing two things with it. One is I'm grabbing these three strings, and if you're new, this will hurt a little bit, but I take my index finger and I just lay it across the first three strings and hold them down just strongly enough so that the notes sound without any buzzes or any issues. But you never want to press too hard and create kind of strain in your hand, because the best guitar players, I think, they have a pretty light touch. I mean, they may sound heavy, but they have a pretty light touch when they press the strings down. And that allows you to be fluid and keep moving all the time, and it's just a really good habit. So when you press down with your index finger across all three strings, you're kind of flat. There are times when your index finger kind of goes to the side, but in this particular case, it's kind of flat. And you hold these three strings down. And then the other action you have to do with your left hand, the only other thing you have to do is you have to lift it up slightly so it's muting the strings. You don't want them to sound like that. You want them to be muted. So it's a light touch here and a light touch here. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose when to sound these notes and when to mute these notes. String mute, I guess. So here I go. I'm going to go. Let me speed it up. So basically there's one strike of the actual notes and then two strikes of the actual mute. And what happens, because it's three, your hand is going up and down, which is basically twos and fours. It's like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm doing this in threes, so it's kind of tickles your brain, because the actual pattern is going to reverse. You're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this is really cool, because the first strike is down, and the second strike is up. So really, really slowly. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. So I'll use words strike and mute. Strike, mute, mute. Strike, mute, mute. And your second strike is an upstroke. So that's what kind of tickles the brain, and that's what kind of feels good. So strike, mute, mute. Strike, mute, mute. And again, strike, mute, mute. Strike, mute, mute. Faster. Okay, so I've almost completed the phrase. And to make this even out time-wise, 2, 3, 4, I think it's a 2-bar phrase. I need 4 more strokes, so I'm going. So in order to get back to beat 1, I have to go, and that completes the whole phrase. You can look at it in 2 parts. The first part is, and I think what that is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I went 2 extra that time. So the next phrase, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. To finish out the phrase, you go up, down, up, down. So muted and then fingered. So, okay, so what we've done here is 5 times 3. In order to make it add up to 2 bars so that we can keep redoing the phrase, and when we're playing with the drummer or whatever, we don't go, off the rails, we have to add in 4 more eighth notes, which you don't have to worry about right now. But when we play these 5 phrases of 3 in a row, we just have to finish the phrase with 4 more eighth notes. And the way I do that is, so I do up, down, fingered, and up, down, muted. And that's just what I choose. Eventually you can choose to do it any way you want. You can mix this up and change it a lot. But the way I finish this phrase, and it's kind of neat because you don't want to perpetually just do the same thing all the time. It adds a little bit of spice to the phrase. So when I play it, the very last thing I do is this jagadoko. So all you have to do is remember the first series of 3s, and then your last piece is that. 4 strokes, 2 fingered, and 2 muted. So in time, and then eventually it leads to all that.